Hello, what is up, team? Welcome to another video where I'm going to talk to you about a simple technique that you can potentially use, whether in a team bonding environment or whether you're trying to sort some problems within your own team. But essentially, it's one of the most popular UX design technique, which is called card sorting. It's a simple one. It's very practical. You can use it for so many different things. I'm going to use my mural here. And so let's get into mural and I'll take you through what you can use it for, what are the limitations, some best practices around card sorting, an example of the different types of card sorting exercises that you can do. So let's get into it. All right, so first of all, let's have a look at what can you use card sorting for. It's very common in the UX world, and therefore it's being used to design new digital products or redesigning and improving existing digital products or features. Designing navigation menus is very popular with this technique, or sitemaps as well. Determining the priorities of features or products, understanding the best word or deciding on the best word for a menu label or a category. That's also common when we're doing card sorting. Or simply just to design a step-by-step process for your customers. Whether it's checkout, a sign up, or something like that. And it's also really good and practical for you to use when you're trying to best organize or figure out how to best organize any content. So you can think about blog, content hub, knowledge banks, things like that. Although card sorting is very simple and very practical to use, there are some limitations that comes with it. There's limited findings and there's limited weight or substance that comes with it, just because it's an exercise that's being done by a group of people. There's a lot of subjective point of views in it, so it's actually quite limited when it comes to findings, and if you're trying to view it as an analytical thing, it's quite limited. And it doesn't really represent a real life behavior. So as an example, if you're trying to juggle around menu systems within your website's navigation, because card sorting are done by people in a room or in a workshop, oftentimes it's based on the assumptions that those individuals have. It's not based on real data or behavior of the users interacting with your website. And like any workshops, if it's not being facilitated correctly, or if it's not being facilitated efficiently, then it can get quite costly because of the time that it takes to do something quite simple oftentimes. So just keep that in mind when you're doing card sorting exercise. You want to make sure that you have a set agenda, a pretty strict time frame, that it doesn't go over than what it needs to be. I wanted to share with you some of the card sorting best practices out there. So one of the tips is really don't overwhelm your participants with too many cards. You want to keep it quite simple. Again, if you're in a room of, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 people, you want to make sure that everyone has the same level of comprehension despite how much they know about the product or the business. You want to make sure that everyone's at the same level. So don't overwhelm your participants with too many cards. Choose a sample size appropriate for the objective. So try to not solve something that's way too big for your objective. So first of all, the way to do this is to decide on what your objective is, and then work on a card sorting exercise that is quite specific to that objective only, and therefore it'll feel more achievable and simple. The third point is to find participants who are a representative of your user. So if you're doing a card sorting exercise with participants or users, then it'll be like the most ideal way is to invite them for a focus group exercise. But if it's not possible, then find people who are representative of your users, and that's oftentimes helpful to just build some empathy in the process. As I said earlier, you want to set a time limit. You don't want this exercise to go for way too long. It oftentimes consumes a lot of time if it's not being facilitated with a set agenda. The next thing is you wanted to clearly explain the purpose of the exercises so everyone understands the intent behind the exercise, not using their own assumptions. So before starting the process or the card sorting exercise, you want to make sure that everyone understands, here's our goal, here's our objective, and this is what we're going to do as a group. That way it's clear for everyone in terms of what they're doing and how they can bring value to the process. Ensure that your label for each card and category are clear and they're appropriate, everyone understands it, that there's minimum misunderstanding in the process. You want to allow participants to leave comments as well. So depending on which card sorting exercise you're going through, which I'll go through in a second, you just want to leave a room for participants to be able to leave comments or say what they need to say, provide feedback, whether it's at the end or during the process. It will depend on which type of card sorting exercise you're going through. But as long as you always remember that your participants can leave feedback and leave comments, that will always help too. The next thing is to ensure that you have a backup plan should things don't work. As an example, if participants don't really get the categories or don't really get the menu labels or don't really understand certain things, ensure you have a backup plan for how to do this as opposed to card sorting exercise. So you might even find out that the open card sorting exercise don't really work for the participants, then you want to make it easier with doing a closed card sorting exercise. And don't worry too much if it doesn't make any sense to you, because we're going to get into some examples. And finally, one thing to keep in mind is there's no right or wrong with something like this. It's actually quite flexible. There's certain ways as to how you could do a card sorting exercise, but ultimately speaking, you can always refine it to fit your own process, your nuances around the business and people that are involved in it. So there's no right or wrong. You'll be able to come up with your own version of card sorting exercise that's going to help the activities that you go through within your organization. Now, without further ado, let's get into some examples of some card sorting activities. I'll start with open card sorting. So what that means is essentially you start off with a bunch of cards that are being laid out, and the expectation here is, let's just say as a business we wanted to categorize these product categories that they fit into a parent category. So this is an example of, say, an e-commerce store, a clothing e-commerce store. As you can see here, there's blazers, sweatshirt, hoodies, jackets, pins, coats, hats, chinos, shoes, so on and so forth, suitcases, bags. As an activity, what we want to do is to group them and make sure that they belong in the same theme or same group of products. So if I was to do that very, very quickly, I'll go blazers, okay, and then we've got sweatshirt and hoodies, maybe that belongs there together. It's kind of like still an outerwear, jackets, coats, right? We've got shirts, tees, maybe that belongs there, jeans, okay. So I'm just grouping based on tops. These are bottoms, pins is slightly different, hats, question mark, not sure, chinos, maybe that goes with jeans. So you could see what I'm doing here. I'm just grouping it based on the categories that I feel they belong in. You can have your participants do this individually, or you can do it as a group as well. But just be mindful when you're doing it as a group, you just want to facilitate it well, just so it doesn't fall by the wayside. It's so easy for that to happen. So what I'm grouping here is this fourth row. There are things that I'm not quite sure about. They're kind of like small accessories or other things. Suitcase, question mark, not sure. What else do we have down there? Okay, let's just say for the purposes of this, let's just stop there. But we've got blazers, sweatshirt, hoodies. Okay, so I might call this, I'll just call this, I'll create another post-it. I'll color it differently to represent the category. Let's just say that's outerwear. And that's tops. That's bottoms. And we've got, I'm just going to call these accessories right now. All right, so that was open card sorting. It started with the cards being laid out. It's open. The participants are open to do whatever they want in terms of grouping, and then they can come up with the names of the categories or the parent categories, which is exactly what I've done. I'm going to go to closed cart sorting, which is the opposite. So the way that it works is it starts off with the categories being laid out or spelled out at the very beginning, which means as participants, we already know that this company has 4 different categories. It's closed. There's nothing more. That's what we're focusing on. And here are the subcategories that falls under these groups. What the participants want to do is just group them based on where they belong. And so these are actually the same as the previous one. So what I might do is I'll just delete this for the purposes of going through this quickly. I'll just copy that. Okay, so that goes there. So as you can see, we kind of just started from a different pathway where in closed card sorting, we start off with knowing what the parent categories are. Then as a group, or if you're doing this individually, then you do this individually, and that's where you start grouping the cards and dropping them under the defined category. So category is defined here. Category was not defined here in open card sorting. In fact, you've only created them towards the end. There's another one that's called hybrid card sorting, which is a combination of the two. Generally speaking, it starts as a closed card sorting exercise. Again, just for the purposes of this video, I'm going to copy the same subcategories, and they belong under, the same categories: outerwear, tops, bottoms, accessories. The difference in hybrid is as participants, you have the ability to add or challenge the categories. And in this case, let's just say we've got to this point and there were some of the other things that we weren't quite sure here. Let's just say there's bags or suitcases, and then we have an idea, as participants, we have an idea to create a new category out of this. And you're allowed to do this in a hybrid card sorting setup, whereas you're not allowed to do that if this was a closed card sorting setup. So I've created a new item, a new subcategory, and let's just call it travel. So suddenly there's an opportunity for a new category here, which is travel. And that was created while we were doing the workshop. So that's the main difference, and I hope that's clear. Again, as I always say, there's no right or wrong in these sort of process. You can always pick and choose the one that you feel suits you the best, or your team, or your organization. If you're not sure, just pick one and then start there. And then the more you do it, the more you find out what suits the individuals within the organization best, or the group best. As long as it is being facilitated well, there's some time limit, all of the other best practices that was mentioned earlier. If you do that and you adhere to that, chances are you can do this quite efficiently. It will help the business. All right, hopefully that's helpful, and I'll see you in the next video.